Hey guys, this is John, and welcome to another episode of the Meatgistics podcast. So, we had some good guests for you recently. We do not have a guest for today's episode. I also don't have Austin here. Some things came up last minute. So, I will be doing this one by myself, but I got Patrick mic'd up back there.
Hey.
And we've got plenty to talk about. So, we just spent the weekend at Omaha for Pheasant Fest. It is Pheasants and Quails Forever's big yearly blast. It's their big thing. Great event, tons of fun. So we'll talk about that, what went on, what we did, kind of what came out of it. And then I've also got some interesting news for Meat Matters. Now, I will warn you ahead of time. There are a lot of bad stories in that. So maybe get yourself a glass of whiskey or something as long as it's late in the day, because that one's going to be a little bit of a rough ride. I will do my best to keep it somewhat positive, but there's some weird / bad things coming on the front. We good back there? Okay. We dropped something, so we'll leave that in. All right. So first of all, we took 7 people to Pheasant Fest this year. It was the media department. We had both Pat and Patrick, myself. We had Austin. We had Brett. We had his wife. And we had Josh, our retail store manager. It was a long day. Like every day was a long day. We got there. We came up Wednesday because there was going to be some snow moving in. So we decided to go up a day earlier than we planned. Then Thursday, we were setting up our booth from 9 until what, like 4, Patrick?
Yeah. Yeah. That was a full day.
Somewhere around
If we
there.
didn't have the foam square bottoms on our feet, I don't think.
We have the...
Yeah, it's hard to explain. I'll let them go.
We have these... so for our booth, some people have like carpet laid down and you have to pay the venue for that, first of all. And second of all, it's just carpet. So we have this like foam puzzle piece put together thing, super simple. It's just squares. But oh my good Lord, does that save your back? Like we had people walking on our booth or in our booth just to get a break from walking on all the concrete. It's amazing how weak we've become as a species. We're like, no, this concrete's too hard to walk on. I can't do it. So we set up our booth. It is the same booth that we bring to like the AMP conventions. So it is a commercial booth. So it's great. It draws a lot of attention. It's, I would say, like 13 feet high, something like that. We have TVs on it. So it's very, very noticeable, but it takes a long time to set up.
People often confuse it for a roller coaster or
yes,
something of the sort. Yeah, it's very extravagant. All the metal. It looks like one of those that your feet dangle and you're just absolutely terrified the entire time.
Yeah. One of the roadies brought that up. He's like, hey, are you guys setting up a roller coaster? One of the weird things that happened during this Pheasant Fest is numerous times. So our slogan is obviously everything but the meat, right? So that's a reference to the fact that we sell casing, seasoning, additives, equipment, everything you need to make products except the meat. I made about 200 pounds of snack sticks. They were out of poultry this time. Half of it was habanero barbecue with cheddar cheese. The other half was Willie's with mozzarella cheese. Normally I would make Willie's with cheddar, but I wanted an easy, like identifiable difference between the two. We had at least 4 or 5 people thinking it was vegan meat, like everything but the meat. So it's like, it tastes like meat, but it's not meat. We also had somebody think that they were pretzels. We had 2 people
think they were pretzels.
They were pretzels. Now that one I can kind of understand because of how they had to lay before I vacuum packed them.
And
there was twists.
And if you saw only one side of our booth, we had jams and jellies and stuff. So if you saw that, went around the other way and went, oh, they have pretzels for you to try them.
That would make some sense, yeah.
But
no. Yeah, I can't.
Less than one half of 1% of people. Yeah.
It's insane. But so when those snack sticks came out, I made the executive decision, whatever. I didn't talk to anyone else here about them. Just like, I'm making these out of chicken. It's going to be the closest to pheasant. I want to show people that you can make a really good tasting product out of poultry. So made them. Everything went fine. Came in on a Saturday or a Sunday. I think Sunday to do that. Came in the next day, tried one, and immediately my reaction was just, oh, great. I've just ruined Pheasant Fest.
Oh, no.
Like they have literally no flavor.
Oh, gosh.
The Willys, it's like, yeah, it's Willys, but it's not flavorful. And the habanero barbecue, it's like, yeah, there's some sweetness, but I would never identify that as habanero barbecue.
Oh, gosh.
So a couple days later, they kind of, as they do, they develop more and more and more. And day of, they were great. So we had no problems with that. Thank the good Lord. I did have numerous people say that they thought the Willys was hotter than the habanero barbecue.
Now, I've experienced that phenomenon from time to time. It's if a piece of like black pepper, so to speak, like size spice hits you in the back of the throat, it's going to drastically, especially with snacks, it's just throw off's the wrong word, but it is going to bite back at you, so to speak. It's going to go, ooh, that's a little warmer. But for 9 times out of 10, if it says habanero, if it says spice, it's going to be spicier than the Willys. The Willys is just very original, but with black pepper, I mean, how many times have you been post a meal and you go, oh, I got a piece of pepper in my teeth, chew on it, boom, there's that spice that comes out.
Yeah, so maybe it's when that pepper kernel or whatever it is hits you in the chewing process that makes it either hot or not, or where it hits you. If it's in farther back in the throat, probably experience it a lot more.
There was one guy that I'd never seen this reaction before. He had a bite of Willys. He goes, oh, that's awful. And then he spit it out. He goes, don't try that one. Try the other. I went, that's the first time I've ever heard anyone say that. Now,
that's interesting.
I didn't even follow up. I just assumed he didn't like meat or something. So.
Well, that's possible. It's possible. But we also did 3 demonstrations on the wild game cooking stage. They took pity on me and just made it at 2:00 each day. So I didn't have to get confused because I definitely would have. So on the first day, which is Friday, I did how to make pheasant snack sticks. On the second day, I did how to make pheasant summer sausage. And on the third day was bratwursts. So on the first 2 days, I gave those away to the audience members, anybody who wanted to take it home and smoke it. The third day, I gave most of it to somebody who was working kind of with us. I gave a little bit more to a lady in the audience. Now, I didn't have any pork fat with me, so we used carrot fiber. We also used carrot fiber because Sure-Gel is impossible to get. Yeah. I didn't want to steal the last little bit we had. But I was very careful to let those people know. I'm like, all right, now this is not a low-fat product. This is a no-fat product. So I added a little bit more seasoning than I normally would. I just wanted, if they happen to be listening to this, if you tried it and it was not that flavorful, just remember it has no fat in it. God, that hurt.
Oh,
My hands,
his hands are
a
destroyed.
Mess right now. So I cut off the tip of my thumb as I was chopping up the snack sticks into little bite-sized pieces. My dog caught me right across one of the knuckles with his dew claw, which was super sharp, much like a velociraptor. And then 2 weeks ago, I was putting either a 22, it was a 22 grinder up onto the line because I was sending it kind of special. And I didn't clear the line the whole way, so it just scraped off all of the skin of my knuckle. So my left hand is just a mess. I made the joke, the thing Kurt Ratzliff and Kurt Carter always say is the man with blood on his hands. It's who everybody wants to buy their meat from. I made the joke that I took that a little bit too literally, and then I showed them my hand. Friday, kind of, whatever. Saturday, pretty good reaction. Sunday, there was like 4 people there. If we do Pheasant Fest again, I will not be
on the last day
doing anything on Sunday. It's useless. Yeah. Everybody's gone. Nobody comes in.
Oh yeah, we have to go. Hey, you guys want all these snack sticks?
I don't know how you make it worth it.
Yeah,
I really don't.
Hey, did you? If you would have never told me that those were chicken, I would have never guessed. They imparted such a natural pork flavor to me. Now
pork flavor, really?
Well, see, I say that with an asterisk next to it because how many times have I just inhaled snack sticks? So, lack of chewing maybe, but no, it had that like slime's the wrong word, but it had that certain texture to it.
Well, that's the pork fat.
Exactly. After you let it set too in the fridge, and then it helped release that flavor bomb. But yeah, to me, if you would have never said anything about it being poultry, I wouldn't have geared that way.
Well, I wanted to call it out to everybody. So my spiel, as people were walking by, would be like, hey, do you want some snack sticks? They are made out chicken with 20% pork fat. So I wanted them to know right away that they weren't going to be like your normal snack sticks, hoping to A, intrigue them, I guess.
Yep.
B, also alert them like, hey, you know, it's going to be a different flavor, but also like show that as long as you add pork fat, you can make a delicious product out of poultry.
Because we had done chicken snack sticks here a cup like a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Yep.
Do you remember that seasoning? That's when we got hatch green chili, right?
Yep.
And we did that with cheddar, I believe. Anyways,
yeah.
Texture aside, I mean, even that had a way unique, like immediately you go, oh, that's chicken.
Well, it was drier. So what I did this time, and I don't know that I do it again, though in the end, I think it helped. Instead of running my pork fat through the grinder as I was doing the chicken, I wanted to make sure that each batch had the correct amount of pork. So I ground them separately, and I ended up grinding the pork fat only once.
Oh,
so it's a little thicker of a piece.
Yeah.
So if you notice, there were a couple of pieces, and I would toss them as I saw them, that had more pork fat on the side. So I guarantee you, with the guy who bit into it and said it's slimy,
yeah,
I'll guarantee you he had one that had a large piece of pork fat along the side.
Oh yeah. It's usually my luck that it's like my last bite. I always, no matter what the meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner, or something as simple as a snack stick, I always try to save the best bite for last.
Yeah.
It's the worst when the last bite that you think is the best turns out to be the worst bite.
Yeah, because it kills the rest of the meal.
Oh yeah, the entire meal. You can't finish with. I go, in fact, I need to eat something else thinking about it.
Just to palate cleanse that. So we did a couple other things there. We went to a live podcast of episode of The Flush with Travis and Tyler Webster. That was absolutely great. That was tons of fun to listen to. It was interesting to see how they do it live. They were just calling not random people. They were calling people up onto the stage. Like they brought a newly engaged couple who are going to go bird hunting on their honeymoon up to talk about that, I guess. Not exactly what I would consider an ideal honeymoon.
Yeah.
But I mean, I get it. If you and your wife are both
that's what you're into.
Sure. Then yeah.
Yeah, that'd be stellar.
I like laying on a beach and having drinks with little umbrellas in them, but you know.
Oh yeah, no movement is what I'm about. So.
To each their own. To each their own. Whatever you want to do. We also have these new flavor crisps. So it's the same chicken on the run stuff, but it's in a retail pack. So this is a 16-ounce resealable casing or bag, not a casing. Pat from Flavor Crisp was nice enough to actually hand deliver these to us at the booth. We got a chance to talk to him, and he is just a super nice guy, unbelievably nice guy. And for a company that, you know, for a family company, it makes all the difference in the world to have that like face-to-face time, see him. We've talked to him, dealt with him, emailed back and forth. He's obviously a very nice guy, very positive guy, but it was really good to get to talk to him in person. I will continue to say that this is one of the best breadings I've ever had. I'm going to be trying it here pretty soon, as Patrick did. He used it as both the wet and the dry. So you mix some of this with some water, and then instead of an egg wash, you dip your meat in that. Then you dip it in some dry of this. Then you go back to the wet of this. Then you go back to the dry, and then you go to your fryer.
What was cool about this, it's a local product to Omaha. So
for Omaha,
yeah. So it was interesting to see people that had heard about it and were familiar, and they're like, "Oh, that's the only thing I put on it." So,
a couple other things I want to talk about with Omaha. There is a pizza restaurant there called Pitch that is phenomenal. It's all coal-fired pizzas, and my pizza was amazing. They also made us try Brussels sprouts, which normally I would hate, but they were really, really good. Yeah. Did you not have any?
No, I didn't go for that.
So one was a spicy pistachio, and the other one was pancetta and something. Both
they looked stellar, but I know better.
No, they tasted as good as they looked and smelled.
Okay.
We also got to talk to Ron from the Hunting Dog podcast. Super nice guy. He's just a character. He makes me laugh anytime I talk to him. I was sitting at the sample table talking to people, and he walks by and he's like, so sir, could I make this at home? And, you know, I played right back into it. He's like, hey, I was trying to get you a sale. I'm like, yeah. Like I just came back as obvious as you were with it. I'm like,
oh, he thought he was being coy.
I think he was making a joke, but still.
Well, I went up to what's Josh's title now from the store?
Retail store manager.
Anyways, he was there rocking it at the sample table. He was so zoned in. I went up to it and I started just asking him questions about it. He had no idea.
He didn't know it was you?
And I go, what flavor are these, sir? And he, we got one chicken. And he looked up, he goes, oh, dude. I was like, man, I could have had you on the hook for a little bit there.
But all in all, it was a great time. We got to meet a ton of good people. We brought up grinder, mixer, stuffer, vacuum sealer, scale, tenderizer, and gave them all away. So we did it on multiple different drawings. So all the winners only got one, but worked out really well because we got to spread that around a little bit. Attendance definitely seemed down from 2 years ago. That could just be the difference between population of Omaha and Minneapolis, though.
Oh, yeah.
For all I know.
Well, it wasn't the weather. The weather was actually pretty nice held for the most part. It's kind of cold, but compared to 2 years ago in Minneapolis where it was
nothing.
Absolutely, freezing.
Not even close to as cold as that. The last time we did this, Austin and I were unloading the trailer and I'm in the back of the trailer pushing out something and he just looks at me and goes, "Oh my God, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine.
I'm a little tired."
And then I feel like something on my lip and I just brush my hand and it's blood, red. Man. So it was so cold that something in my nose, like a blood vessel, just broke.
I've never had a bloody nose like
just
that.
Started gushing blood.
I would have freaked out. I probably would have passed out. I would have had two instances of the first thing happening to me. First,
it's an aneurysm.
Nose, and then I'm just like, am I the guy that passes out at the sight of blood? Yep.
I gotta go.
Yeah.
But no, all in all, it was a pretty good time.
I was astonished this weekend. Just how many people just already process or do process, but then stop at only just making loose burger meat out of it. So I'm talking, 20, 30, 40 guys. And I'm just like, you guys are right there on the cusp of just making awesome snack sticks, jerky. But they just, I just do this, or I give it to a guy, or I heard the answer of, no, but looking to start getting into it, stuff which is great news, because they probably have the problem we have here, just trying to get into anywhere for the next 4 months to a year. I talked to people and it was dependent on locale. Like it seemed like the further north you went, the less, the longer the wait to get into a locker, if they were even still around. I was talking to some people in smaller cities. Yeah. Their lockers were going out of business left and right. So it was interesting to see just that dynamic between just geographical locale.
Yeah. And there's no from our perspective, I can't imagine a small plant or locker going out of business right now for a lack of business. I can see it from like, I don't want to do this anymore and I can't find anyone to buy it.
I think that's what it was. It was a little bit older people, or if they give it, or if they don't have anyone
and
to give it to.
Kids don't want to do it.
Exactly. And they just kind of went under. And I'm sure those are the towns of, less than 1,000 people maybe, or less than 10,000 people.
So I would bet what we see in the next 5 to 10 years is the rise of the large, medium size plant. So it'll be people kind of not accumulating multiple plants, but like the business for multiple plants, people who can deal with that without becoming these supersized conglomerations or conglomerates. Yeah. Conglomerates that just,
they don't want to conquer. They just want
live and as provide, much as they can do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep, for sure. Was there anything else about Pheasant Fest we want to talk about? We did just the stage, the giveaway. We talked about the flush. We talked about Ron. Cooking stage. I think that's it.
We're trying to push.
I think that's it.
Push information. If you guys see a lot of new Meatgistics users, that's hopefully
well. That was one thing. Like I talked to very few people who were aware of Walton's and weren't aware of Meatgistics. Yeah. I also talked to a ton of people who were completely oblivious to both Walton's and Meatgistics,
and that happened to process their own stuff too. I thought that
was awesome.
Yeah,
I mean that's exactly who we're trying to reach: people who don't know who we are, and don't really know how to make the best product. Like that's who we want to talk to. So hopefully we'll see a bump here in a little bit in some Meatgistics users.
Oh, yeah. Because a lot of guys, they just wanted to know, well, what tastes the best on my pheasant and quail? And I'm like, well, we happen to have great things here to try out, but it was hard to, not necessarily hard, but some of the stuff that we brought could lend people into thinking that we're only like kind of topical stuff. And I was like, no, you can take it back down to when you're throwing it in your, because they're, they either see it completely retail or they see it, we only sell equipment and stuff. I'm like, no, we have everything. We have both. We have this giveaway equipment right here, and we also have stuff that does 5, 25, or 100 pounds. So it's just anything you can imagine.
And those were the other two things. One, people who were like, oh, cool, where can I buy this? Had to explain to them, nope, we sell all the seasoning and supplies you need to make it yourself. And B, then people being like, did you bring these seasonings?
Yeah.
So we can't. The habanero barbecue by itself weighs 5 pounds.
Exactly. Well, we'd bring 5 of them, and then even that would be a pain in the butt.
Yeah, so. It's just not feasible.
No.
So we did have a coupon code going during that weekend that I gave out to a bunch of people. I have no idea how many times it was used. And then the last thing we ran into, so we're walking home one day, and I saw this guy with a Wing It hat on, WINGIT. And I'd seen these hats all over the place, and they had kids walking around handing out promotional items. It's just like this.
What is it?
The kids walk into a booth and just start handing things out. I'm like, well, that's actually really smart. So we're walking back to the hotel one night, and the guy's got it on behind me. And I turn around. I'm like, all right, so what is Wing It? And he looks at me. He just goes, it is VRBO for your hunt. Oh, he didn't say VRBO. He said Airbnb for your hunting land. And I just turned to Josh, who's our retail store manager. I'm like, that's genius.
Yeah.
And so we kind of talked a little bit more on the way to the hotel. He went a different way, and I was just thinking about it the rest of the night. First of all, I grew up with a kid who created Airbnb. He was my best friend's younger brother's best friend.
You didn't invest in him, dude?
I had no idea.
Did he seem bright?
Once we all graduated high school, I never thought of or talked to that kid ever again.
Totally.
Just outside my
it is one of those weird, just like, well, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Even if you were to go back in time, it's just like, oh, he's probably a weirdo. He needs his alone time to even come up with the idea in the first place.
Yeah. No, nothing seemed odd about it. He seemed very average, but whatever. Anyways.
What a compliment nowadays. You seem very
average.
There's nothing about you that makes me go,
don't like it. What an amazing single sentence there. Their product.
If your elevator pitch is that's strong, and you don't have to go, that's this.
All you have to say.
And you just look at people and nod.
Gets across your,
wow.
Perfect. It was absolutely perfect. He didn't need to say more than a sentence for me to be like, that is a great idea.
Because the people that already have that land, if the app or whatever they decide to do is as seamless as these other big ones, and they're already taking pictures the same way that they would and setting up information, and they know the lay of the land, and they can even get involved as far as being a guide, so to speak, on certain days and stuff like that.
If they have to.
That's what I'm saying. There's certain things, but you use this to get them out of the way.
So they're working with developers right now. They're creating an app, and it'll be called the Wing It app. They're working with landowners, and they've got a ridiculous amount of landowners signed up. I forget the exact number, but it is an insane amount. So what they're going to do is they'll charge a membership fee, just like Onyx. And then they'll also take a small portion of whatever that transaction is between the landowner and the user. So they have 2 revenue streams. Shoot, I'll wait to say that firmly. We are going to have them on the podcast. They want to come. We badly want to have them on.
Disclaimer: we might be wrong.
We might be wrong on that,
but
we might be wrong.
We're trying to do our best to really just streamline it to you guys,
and to remember. As we all know, remembering is not my specialty, but it is an absolutely awesome idea.
As a guy who has no land or even know how it works, but I'm assuming if I had land, I'm just like, I'm doing nothing with it in the meantime. It's just it makes total sense to just get money for your land that you're constantly either using or not using. So,
and another thing, especially in Kansas where there's such little public land to hunt on, probably your generation, a reason a bunch of them don't go hunt is because nobody taught you guys how to speak to somebody you don't know properly. Like that's not an insult.
No, I know. There's a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
No.
Like
a lot
going
of them
up
happen to be in my age group for sure. Yeah.
For whatever reason, going up and knocking on somebody's door that you don't know, dude, I imagine is a nightmare for you.
That is like, yeah. No, for me, I love it. I'm one of those.
Okay.
Well, remember, I have older brothers, so I kind of took cues from them. But like, yeah, my brothers still, they roll up on their friends and just knock on the door. So I do the same thing like that. But I don't like people that get upset when they're like, why didn't you call me? I'm just like, because you have a front door and I knocked on it.
Because I can use
Why do you have a doorbell? You know what I mean? Eradicate your ring. You know what I mean? If you don't expect people to ever show up at your house. But
there is an entire generation of kids who don't know how to talk to somebody they don't know. Yep. So going up and knocking on someone's door and asking if you can hunt their land. Like, what do I need to do? Obviously, you want it to be somewhat transactional. Like, do you need help doing A, B, or C? If I do those for you, will you let me hunt on these days? That doesn't seem to be something a lot of people are comfortable with anymore. So
yeah, totally. And just even bringing it up, it's just, do they even know that that's an option?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like the idea of public land, right? It's just, maybe that's kind of a gray term right now because public seems all encompassed that I don't need permission, but at the same time, you would want to do the respectful thing and ask permission, right? Because public seems like I wouldn't need to talk
public,
to them.
You don't need to. Public land,
okay,
you can do whatever you want. We're talking about, we're talking about like you own the land.
Okay.
Right. Like I'm knocking on a farmer's door and asking, hey.
And you use those services like you're saying, you talked about earlier, that you would find those locations out.
Well, that's what Wing It's going to do.
Oh, okay.
So this would just be like, I know I live near this guy who's got quarters. I'm going to go knock on his door and see if he needs help hailing bay. And that will let me hunt birds from here to here, you know.
Yeah.
So you make like an agreement with them. This takes all of that out of it. And it's just, hey, I've got this land. If anybody wants to hunt on it these days, let me know. I will charge you this much money. It's genius. It's absolutely perfect. And I think I'd be shocked if they're not like, not a household name, but like a hunter's household name within a couple of years. They've got all the investment they need. It seems like, at least. They've got like sounds like really good developers working on it. And I was asking them about the app, and every question I asked, they had an answer for. I don't want to get into that because we will have them on the podcast and we'll talk about that. They are also a Kansas company, which obviously we like. So
orange too. I saw a lot of orange happening.
It was a lot of orange, which is good.
It's a good crossover for us.
We enjoy that. Now, blue would be better, but I mean, what can you do? All right. So that is pretty much our experience at Pheasant Fest. Oh, no, it's not. There's one thing I have to talk about. And this annoyed me very, very much. So we get to the banquet, Pheasant Fest main banquet. I show up, walk over, meet everyone else at the table, go get a drink. As I'm over there getting a drink, I hear something about a raffle for 4 shotguns, and I hear the name Brett Walton. I just go, are you kidding me? And I kind of laugh somewhat in like, not frustration, but disbelievement. And everybody around me just looks at me, and I'm like, yeah, that's my boss. And then I started like, everyone else kind of like laughed it off, but one guy just keeps looking at me. I'm like, well, I don't want him to think that I have like actual dislike for the fact that he won guns. So I was like, I love them. I'm like, but he's won more guns than I will ever own.
I hope Brett listens to this one because my reaction was the exact opposite. I cheered like you would not believe. I went, oh my God, yes.
I don't feel like that's true at all.
I promise you. The guy behind me, he goes, is that you? And I went, no. I go, that's the man in charge. What, are you going to not cheer that? You kidding me?
So he won. It was called the All Gauge. It was a 12, a 16, a 20, and a 410, I think.
Yeah, he was looking forward to that 410. That's the one that they didn't have. So
I just assumed that he'd give one to Sandy, one to Austin, one to me, and then there'd just be maybe one for him. Like, you know, family, but no, that's not what
he's going to make some trades is what I heard.
So. Oh, is he?
Yeah. He wants to get, his grandchildren some kind of starter stuff. So.
Yep. So he just needs a bigger gun safe.
That's what
store those in.
I was talking about that too yesterday. I was like, well, now I go, now you're gonna have the problem of where do you put these? I go, now every mantle is gonna now have its own kind of like Winchester or something up there.
Pretty much. So Brett now has 5 grandchildren, I think, and 2 children who've not provided. So he could easily end up with 10 grandchildren.
Yeah, we were talking. That was one of the topics of discussion.
So
how quickly that happens usually.
So those guns will definitely have value in the future. Another thing that was really interesting is when I showed up to the table, I knew that we didn't have all 10 seats. And Chris, who's our PF rep, had told me he was going to sit somebody with us. And he said, we'll make it somebody you guys will get along with. So show up, and it's this, I don't know, I would say a couple years older than me, but not old by any means. Yeah. Guy with a straight bill hat and like a really elaborate ring and a really big
bracelet, right?
Bracelet. And I was just like, who is this guy?
Yeah, who's this guy?
I'm like, what is going on here? And then Brett's like, hey, John, this is, and I forget his name, from Legacy Firearms. He's the CEO, and he'd be really good for your podcast. And I was like, oh, okay. He starts talking, and it was like maybe 45 seconds till I was like, oh no, I love this guy. Like, he is absolutely exactly,
the stuff
thinks
like
the same I do.
His anecdotal stories weren't just like kind of cool little. It was just like, oh my God, that would be the most extravagant,
incredibly in depth.
Yeah.
So I asked him at one point, I'm like, what do you think about disbanding the ATF? And he had like a really well thought out response to it, talking about what the issues, what the benefits would be. So hopefully at some point we'll get him on. Now, he's probably a little bit of a big ask. He's I think he was the CEO of Legacy Firearms. For those of you who don't know, look up Legacy Firearms. I walked by their booth. They make absolutely gorgeous shotguns. But what an interesting guy. His wife is the head of ergonomics for Apple.
Shut up.
Yes.
What?
The head of ergonomics for Apple. So I'm sure from what it sounded like, they're really struggling for money. They didn't.
I could ask a million questions just about that.
I know.
The ergonomics of Apple. Like, wait, like the products or the people that work there and the location?
Oh, the products.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's got to be the products.
Well, what? How can you get more ergonomic than wireless and out of the way? I'm trying to.
Well, you're too young for this. Do you remember the Apple computer that came out that was just a monitor with?
Yeah, of course, with the colored back
in the back. Yeah. So that was the first one that
was all encompassed,
was like that,
like all in one. Yeah.
Then the mouse
and keyboard.
How much that made an enormous difference with Apple.
Oh yeah,
the different like shapes of the mouse, all of that.
No, I'm not saying that definitely that's a role that is coveted and awesome, but at the same time, it's hard to see like the people that when they first saw that, the application for it. So here we are, like computing has now been taken off the last 25 years. It's almost hard to see the next jump of ergonomics to that point because it's almost like less is more now. So
it's all going to be.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's really, really gestures, right? Like Minority Report and stuff.
Yep. It'll all be either that or like in your fingertips.
No. Oh, that's a good one. That's
how you just like touch button or touch fingers.
You're doing a lot of different numbers for sign language right there, by the way.
Oh, I have no idea.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, that was a cool experience, though, by the way. You weren't there at the booth for that. There was a deaf gentleman that came by.
Oh, really?
And he was asking if we had a meat grinder for sale. And he was kind of gesturing with his hands. He was going real quick. And I go, hold. I go, this is perfect. I've always wanted this.
I've been training for this my whole life.
So I went again. Slow. I took a little bit of ASL and I signed.
So for those of you just listening, Patrick is over exaggerating his American Sign Language.
Hold on. Well, a lot of it's gestures, like you mime once you set it up. But he was like he did meat and then he did a mechanism with his hands. I go, oh yeah, right over here, and I gave him a catalog. So it was fascinating.
That's awesome.
It's one of those like, oh my God, that's awesome. I had to tell somebody about it.
So I was doing. All 3 days, I did about 40 to 45 minutes of talking up on the wild game stage. I then spent the next hour or so cleaning what I had been using.
Yeah, that took him a while.
It's ridiculous. We had this tiny little sink without like all the things I'm used to having to help clean those. So it took a really long time.
We need to take a kiddie pool next time and just fill it up.
Well, I would say I spent more time cleaning than I did up on the stage. So
significantly, yep.
Yeah, I don't even know if it was technically worth it.
If we sold snack sticks, definitely.
Right, but we don't.
Yeah.
We don't.
You can get this at the booth right now.
We sell the stuff you need to make snack sticks, hence everything but the meat.
And the fact that it's vegan only. Right?
Yes, if you take anything away from this podcast, it is we sell everything you need to make snack sticks and vegan only. Okay, so on to Meat Matters. Now, the last time that this occurred, Watergate was going on. Margaret Thatcher had just been elected as prime minister. And Why Can't We Be Friends was a hit song.
Good thing we have an older audience. You'd have to explain all three of those things.
Probably. Isn't it funny that Britain had a female leader
long before
30 years ago, 40 years ago?
Before the idea of it ever even arose.
And here we're like, no, not yet.
And then now that we have vice president female, and it's kind of swept it on the rug. Right?
Yeah.
Not a round of applause.
So
we did it, Joe. Let's do it.
I guess, well, they always have been ahead of us. Anyways, this was the last time that American shoppers are spending as much of their paycheck on groceries as we are now. The Food at Home Producer Index is up 13.4% since just last February. And this is amazing. And I had to read it numerous times. It's 12.8% higher than January of this year, of like 60 days ago. So take that with a grain of salt. We've been saying on this podcast for a long time that if you think your food bill has only gone up 13% in the last year, you're kidding yourself. I'm paying double what I was 2 years ago.
I don't even go to the grocery store anymore.
I honestly and seriously do that. I wear my headphones when I'm walking around the grocery store listening to podcasts. I take them out. I look at the person checking me out and I go, do not tell me the amount. Throw the receipt out. I'm like, I don't want to look at it.
Good thing you don't do your own then, because you'd have to stare at everything and how much it costs.
It's going to ruin the rest of my day. I'm not paying attention to it. I'm like, forget it. I don't want to think about it. That's how bad it is.
Yep.
Now, thank God I'm in the situation I'm in where I don't have to, worry about that. But tons of people do. So I know people all across the country are making difficult decisions at the grocery store.
Well, it goes deeper in that, I think, because now they're settling for stuff that's potentially unhealthy, right? And then, I mean, that's the bottom line on that is you die sooner. So it's like, this is a bigger deal than I think because it's like, you like to feel subtly inconvenienced and just be like, sorry, inconvenienced.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And just go, oh, that sucks where I'm spending $20, $30 more. But how about if you said, oh, I'm 20% of my life expectancy is gone.
Yeah.
Like, how about you look at it like
difference.
that? Yeah.
Now, these two stories aren't related, but I've been keeping this one in reserve for a while. The World Health Organization, who obviously we all know has never been wrong about anything, says meat causes cancer.
Yeah, that one.
So real quick, a couple other things. What else is in the same category as
didn't they call it a class 3 or something?
Class B, I believe.
Carcinogen,
shift work, glass containers, roofing.
Oh yeah,
all of the and very hot beverages. Sorry, don't forget that one. Very hot beverages. Anything over 65 degrees. That's
hold on, bogus. I saw a video where it said if you drink anything too cold, the fat inside you will actually congeal, and then that's what's really bad for you. So,
it's impossible. It's literally impossible in today's world to know what's going on.
Well,
if you don't listen to what they say, you're ill-informed. If you do listen, you're misinformed. Who said that? Denzel Washington said that. It was the perfect quote. That was like 20 years ago. I remember 10 years ago. I remember seeing that and be like, oh my God, he's so smart.
Yeah, because you could be right on, but on the wrong platform, and they'll look at you like you're nuts. So.
Yep. And then one other thing on the World Health Organization's list of probable cancer-causing agents is DDT. DDT is a probable.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's been unquestionably shown that DDT causes cancer.
Well, yeah, it was that was Jake the Snake's finisher.
No,
back in the day,
I knew you were going to go wrestling on that.
A lot of our fans are wrestling fans, okay?
Also, it's not red meat that they're calling carcinogen. It's the way it's cooked. So hot, very hot, or fried.
Yeah, that article was kind of laughable. As you scroll through, it was just like, oh, wait, they're trying to make claims for what things are, and their root of it was just wrong. Like you're saying, a lot of it was temperature based. And I was like, wait, what?
So the second article on that was meat causes cancer. Learn why you should ditch it now. Cancer wisdom.
And
that was the
it had a link.
Yeah. That was the link on it.
The call to action, as we call it.
So it says meat and dairy are behind many diseases like cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. Our bodies are not built to eat meat. If you look back in history, few people ate meat. Only kings or pharaohs could afford it. And that is the reason why only kings were fat.
What does that sound like?
Slaves and peasants were slim because they ate a more plant-based diet.
That sounds like, remember about 2 months ago, you said a UK official said only steak would be now eaten by
it would be
the rich.
Yep.
That sounds oddly familiar.
It's the exact same thing. But I think probably the reason that slaves were more fit is because they were forced to work all the time. I think that probably makes a little bit more sense. A little bit more sense. And you can't say that we weren't designed to eat meat when we have canines, incisors, and we've eaten meat as far back as you can find.
Yep.
Go way back in ancient history, you will find mammoth bones with obvious man-made tool markings on them because we butchered them.
And then the scientific...
And then ate the meat.
Research that says that then our IQ grew when we started to like cook the meat even and stuff like that. So yeah,
more access to protein.
There's just a lot of things that are going against their very simple-minded explanation.
So that made me very, very mad. And I did a bunch of searching and found study finds meat consumption correlation to greater life expectancy. So we'll go through a bunch of this and just say, quote from the article, our team broadly analyzed the correlations between meat eating and life expectancy and child mortality at global and regional levels, minimizing the study bias and making our conclusions more representative of the general health effects of meat eating. The research found the consumption of energy from carbohydrate crops like grains and tubers did not lead to a greater life expectancy, and total meat consumption correlated to greater life expectancy, independent of the competing effects of total calorie intake, economic affluence, urban advantages, and obesity. So I don't know. That doesn't quite sound as biased about, or then like only kings and pharaohs ate it and that's why they were fat. That seems a lot more scientific to me. Now, yes.
Yeah.
Confirmation bias, absolutely. 100% that says what I want it to say, and the other one says the exact opposite. But I know there are people who read that first quote that we read and hook, line, and sinker. Just buy into that. And that's why you're fat sitting at home and sad watching TV.
When I was chubby growing up, when people would make fun of me, I'd go, well, only kings and pharaohs were fat growing up. So only you're actually talking up to me right now. So.
You should address me as your Lord. I actually remember I was probably like 13 years old, went to the store to buy new pants, and the lady... I was trying to find pants that fit, and she brought me into the husky section.
I knew you were going to say the H word.
And that was it. Yeah. That was it. Like, after that, I was like, this is never happening again. So my mom was trying to, she's like, you're not fat, John. You're just really big for your age, which I know seems ridiculous now.
I've heard it all. You're just big boned. You're husky.
But I was this size when I was in middle school.
That's a good point. Yeah, you were.
Ridiculous.
No, I was. I look like Bobby Hill growing up. So I got the photos to prove it.
All right, so a couple more stories real quick. And these, I'm sorry to end on these, but they're not good stories. I'm going to be leaving work today. I'll be going directly to Dillon's and buying every bit of chicken they have and then freezing it. Because avian influenza has been confirmed in another flock, this time in Jefferson County, Wisconsin. The flock's isolated. It's going to be cold, so it will never make its way into the food market. But I wanted to do some deeper dive on this. So I spent about an hour kind of researching what's going on with this avian influenza outbreak. And the USDA, or the APHIS, which is their like infectious disease section of the USDA, will continue to announce the first case of HPAI, which is the avian influenza, in commercial and backyard flocks detected in a state, but will not announce subsequent detections in that state.
What?
So we're going to have no idea how many flocks, how many birds are infected in each state. It's like, oh, no, now Missouri has it. Now Wisconsin has it. Now don't worry how many in there have it. That seems like the exact, well, not the exact opposite, but that does not seem like it's the right thing for the USDA to be doing. Should be keeping us up to date on how many birds in each state, how many flocks in each state are infected. I really don't know. It makes me super nervous, but
how do they define a flock? Sorry to interrupt, but
so there's a couple different ways they define a flock, and we will get to that in a second.
Okay.
Since the beginning of this month, which today is the 16th day of this month, so 16 days, there have been 22 confirmed cases of avian influenza this month alone. And those span across 16 different states. So some of them had multiple, but 16 different states had 22 flocks identified avian influenza in them. Now, 9 of those are what are considered a mixed breed or backyard mixed, and they're not true commercial sized flocks. I tried to find what is identified as a mixed backyard and what is a commercial process or commercial flock, but there doesn't at least seem to be any easily accessible information on that. So the largest backyard mix I found was 264. So I don't know, maybe somebody in the comments has a better idea what level you have to get at before you're considered commercial. But I know we've said it a bunch of times, but like I said before, I will be leaving work today, going to Dillon's, buying all the chicken they have available. When I say all of the chicken, I know you probably think I just mean a couple of packages. I mean, I'm absolutely ready to spend $1,000 in chicken today. I will buy every pack of fresh chicken that they have, take it home, vac seal it, and not worry about that for the next however long it takes my wife and I to eat through that. We eat a ridiculous amount of chicken. When the whole thing was going on with, me eating 2 steaks a week or whatever, I've never added that back in just because I've never added 2 steaks a week back in just because the prices continue to stay fairly high. Not as bad as it was, but fairly high. But chicken, a price increase in chicken would probably hurt us more than a price increase in beef.
I saw an interesting stat now. I believe it to be truthful, but if it's not, totally understand why not. But it said this has to do with alcohol consumption. It was the top 10% of people that consume alcohol are actually buying 60% of the total intake. Sure.
I would have imagined it was higher than 60%.
So in layman, 10% of the top alcoholics, so to speak, are keeping afloat 60% of the entire. So I wonder what that is with meat consumption. Maybe do the top 10% of people that do potentially what you're saying, does that account for that larger percentage as well?
That's a great question.
I assume it might, because a lot, people that have these giant deep freezes and stuff like that and just are always
people who have giant deep freezes, almost uniformly, I would imagine extremely high percentage of them are hunters.
Yes. Oh yeah, for sure.
I would imagine,
and if they're not, they're closer to agriculture than you think.
Or they own a farm,
or they know a guy. They go half in on a cow with somebody. Yep. Oh yeah, because I know people that don't hunt. You would have no idea, even have like a green thumb, so to speak, or outdoorsman, and they go, oh yeah, me and my dad, we go half in on a cow or a pig. It's just because someone knows a guy and they just know exactly how much money they're going to save on groceries.
Yeah, and that's always been available to them, so they take advantage of it. Yeah. That's a really good question, though. I would imagine it's less than alcohol.
I would too,
but
just
still
just harder
fairly
to source.
high. Still fairly high.
Maybe 30 or 40, not 60, but yeah, I would imagine
40
so.
was the number that popped right into my head, but that is a guess.
Yeah. And that's just at a retail,
The good news is they come to the Meatgistics podcasts for our guests or guesses. No real information.
Well, I wish there was a way, I guess, to make that. Well, where would you even begin to look for such a stat? You would have to. And it'd be 5 years old at best with the current information.
Oh, it'd be worse than that. You'd have to rely on consumer report data.
Oh yeah.
So you'd have to like pull people.
And none of that that's probably pre-COVID. Those numbers.
So. It's not even that. It's just that is the most unreliable way. That's the same thing with like all the how much meat do you eat? You know, what type of cancers you develop.
Oh, that's a great point.
You're relying on people to be honest, and they never are in those reports.
Yeah.
Ever. For a quick story, I was a fairly honest kid. 1 year I got sent something to like write down what radio stations I listened to, and they sent me literally a couple of dollars a week. I made up all of it. Literally all of it. I was like, I don't know. I listened to 92.3.
Did you sound like me? In my 6th grade reading log, me and my mother would fill out. They go, they want me to read. I go, Mom, they want me to read like 10 hours of stuff a week. She goes, well, just
none
whatever.
Of it. Just
and then I'll sign it. Well, she goes, my mom's explanation, she goes, it's not that you're not reading. She goes, I just don't expect you to stare at a book for 2 hours a night. But like when you're out and about in the world, she goes, you're not getting time for those instances. So we found a happy medium where I'm not a complete and total slow person, but at the same time, I'm not going to spend. I'm not going to MIT. So please, John, continue.
Definitely not. Definitely not. None of us are. All right. So real quick, last one is there is a new Monogram meat plant that's opening up in Tennessee. It's going to be $53.5 million. It's going to create 400 new, sounds like really well-paying jobs. They're going to do everything from meat snacks to appetizers, hors d'oeuvres. So if you are in the Nashville area, because it is in somewhere near Nashville, that might be a great place to look for a job. I highly, highly recommend not everybody, but if somebody's looking for a job, getting into the food industry, this is a great time to do it. One, knowledge of how to make food is very important. It will continue to be very important no matter what happens in the future in our country and the world.
Unless it starts raining food, but
which is unlikely, possible.
Cloudy with a chance of meatballs.
So can the title of this one be Raining Food? But how would you say it like Raining Men?
Oh, geez.
It's a raining food.
We'll find another lyric in that, so I don't know.
I don't think it's possible.
Hallelujah, it's raining food.
I mean, that's how you would do it, yes.
Well, we pick names very loosely.
Yeah, very, very loosely. You should hear how those conversations normally go. It's ridiculous.
Didn't we come up with one in the car on the way to Pheasant Fest? I can't remember.
Yeah, we often one person will say something and go, that's the name of the next podcast.
Yeah, one was classic, though. Anyways, probably not work related.
None of them are work related.
It's usually 80s music that we can all get on board with. We'll take a lyric and then just strip it apart and throw meat in there somewhere. So you got anything else for this week?
Nope. That's it.
Cool. Well, yeah, we had a great time at Pheasant Fest. So
it was awesome.
We'll have to check it out again.
Next year, it's going to be in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
So they did release that towards the end of the banquet. Also, real quick, for anyone who is interested in the banquet, it was really well done this year. Those little videos they showed, those were fantastic. Those were great.
They did a good relationship with the people and their dogs and stuff like that. And then the gentleman that they brought up who was a Green Beret for about, 11 years?
That guy was awesome.
Yeah, they do a great color guard tribute.
Hank Shaw.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know who Hank Shaw is, he's a really well-known and well-respected wild game cook. He spoke. He also cooked on the wild game stage. I was lucky enough to get to spend some time with him behind the wild game cooking stage, just kind of talking to him. They did a really, really good job. So that was awesome. All right. But that's it. That's all I've got.
Yeah, I had a great weekend. It was fantastic. Well,
I'm exhausted still.
Yeah,
I'm so tired still.
Yeah.
Literally every day, including Friday, which didn't start till noon. My day started at 8, and none of them finished before like 10:30.
Did you work out only the first day you got
First
there?
2 days.
First 2 days.
First 2 days.
You still snuck it in.
And then, I snuck it in. And then, so the working out was before that 8 o'clock time. Friday, there was some country star there who Warren Goglin.
Morgan Wallen.
Morgan Wallen. There you go. Idiots on my floor partying until 3:15. And I just had to keep telling myself, you were young once. Don't go out there. You were young. It's not worth it. And I heard security come talk to them a few times, and it had literally no effect. So I just tried to remain calm, fall back asleep. So it was like, nah.
That was the second coolest show that weekend, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we're sitting in the booth. No, it was before we were setting up the booth. Someone goes, yeah, and Tool's here talking to me. And I go, Patrick, did you know Tool was here?
I had no idea. So I'd got floor seats a year ago, and then they canceled their tour that was coming here to Wichita. So I just go, I'll probably never see him. Paid attention to work. We're sitting there setting up the booth, and John's like, oh, Tool's in town. I was like, whatever. And I was just like, well, they're going to be at a different venue, so I'm not even going to bother thinking of getting an Uber like there, that, right, like all the fuss with that. So I look it up in my room later that night. I go, where's the directions of this place? 250 feet away. It's the exact same building that we were in. So I actually got to do double duty and go check it out for the first time. So that was a lot of fun. Huge highlight for me.
Awesome. All right. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. Visit waltonsinc.com, meatgistics.com to find everything but the meat. We'll see you guys next time.
Right on. Bye, guys.
Thanks for checking out the Meatgistics podcast. To shop everything but the meat, head on over to waltonsinc.com. And to get your meat processing questions answered by experts and enthusiasts alike, head on over to our online community at meatgistics.com. Walton's.